The plants speak, not in words, not in ways the waking mind can readily grasp, but in vibrations, frequencies that hum just beyond the edges of ordinary perception. Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, heard them clearly, while others dismissed such whispers as imagination. Cayce traveled beyond the veil of the seen and the measurable. His body lay motionless on a couch in a modest home near Virginia Beach, while his spirit moved between worlds. There, in a dimension many only glimpse in dreams, he received more than 14,000 documented readings that left even doctors bewildered and spiritual seekers changed. Among his most stirring insights was a revelation that may seem too simple to believe until you feel its truth stirring something quiet inside you. The plants around us are alive in ways we've forgotten how to perceive. They're not just growing, they're harmonizing, balancing, guiding. Some of them, Cayce insisted, are here not merely to adorn or heal our bodies, but to restore the very integrity of our souls. He spoke of a life force woven through all living things, and he described certain plants as spiritual tuning forks, vibrational allies designed to retune our fragmented inner frequencies. To Cayce, plants were never passive. They were listening, responding, acting. Their intelligence wasn't metaphor, it was literal. While science was still decades away from discovering the electrical signals and complex communication systems within plant life, Cayce was already describing them as conscious entities, living on a different wavelength of time and awareness. Imagine it, not just a fig on your windowsill, not merely a lavender sprig beside your bed, but emissaries of the unseen, allies in your soul's evolution, healers of emotional scars, stewards of balance in the places where your spirit feels frayed or lost. This wasn't theory. It wasn't abstract. It was, according to Cayce, practical wisdom, tangible, applicable, immediate. And so we begin a journey not through botany as you may know it, but through a mystical lens that transcends petals and stems, a lens through which 7 particular plants reveal themselves as ancient teachers. Each one carries a signature vibration, each one a role in the symphony of your being. Sage, lavender, aloe vera, basil, peace lily, rosemary, snake plant, together. They form not just a garden, but a spiritual technology designed to harmonize the soul. Let's step into that garden now. The story begins not in a laboratory, nor in a field guide, but in the invisible world, one shaped by energy, emotion, and frequency. Edgar Cayce did not view plants through the lens of utility or ornamentation. He saw them as living repositories of spiritual intelligence beings whose very form was shaped by purpose. Each leaf, each root, a transmitter of unseen vibrations. To understand this, imagine sitting in the soft light of early morning, surrounded by houseplants. The room is quiet, but beneath the silence, there's a feeling, a texture in the air, like a soft current brushing your skin. That's what Cayce spoke of, that subtle, almost imperceptible exchange between human and plant, the way their vibrational field can wrap around ours like an unseen balm. He claimed that plants exist in a different relationship to time and space. Their awareness is not linear, not sequential. It doesn't think in words. It pulses, it harmonizes, it responds. While human beings think in symbols and stories, plants think in presence. And certain plants, Cayce explained, have a vibration specifically attuned to the human soul. They serve as living correctives like tuning forks that gently nudge us back into resonance with our true frequency. He spoke of a concept modern science is only beginning to explore: the bioelectrical field, the energy signature that radiates from all living things. Cayce knew it by another name, the life force. To him, every illness, every emotional wound, every spiritual block was first a disruption in this field. And just as music can calm or stir us, certain plants could refine and stabilize our energy, not by acting on the body alone, but by whispering to the soul. Imagine your soul, not as a fixed entity, but as an instrument slightly out of tune, emotions you haven't processed, spaces you've walked through that left you heavy, thought patterns inherited, repeated, and reinforced until they become a kind of psychic static. Cayce believed that this dissonance could be cleared not just through meditation or prayer, but through proximity to living, vibrational allies, plants that quietly, consistently recalibrate the spiritual body. He described them as harmonizers, each with its own purpose, each affecting a different dimension of human experience. Some cleanse the emotional residue that lingers after trauma. Others amplify clarity, opening inner vision. Some act as shields, others as bridges, but all of them operate in a way we often miss through resonance. You don't have to do anything extraordinary. You simply need to be with them, to place them with intention, to listen not with your ears, but with your state of being. In this, Cayce echoed an ancient truth long known to indigenous cultures that everything alive communicates. That consciousness is not confined to the human brain, but pulses through all of creation in varying degrees. He was not the first to say this, but in a century defined by industrialization and mechanistic thinking, his voice stood out a reminder from the margins that we had forgotten something vital. He saw the plant kingdom as a bridge, a living link between the seen and the unseen, between the material and the energetic. And he urged us to rekindle our relationship with it not through analysis, but through reverence. Close your eyes and consider the plants in your life right now. The ones on your windowsill, the ones lining your kitchen or balcony. Are they random? Are they merely decor? Or have they been quietly participating in your journey, offering their silent support? Cayce believed they were already helping whether we noticed or not. But he also taught that awareness magnifies effect. When we recognize a plant's spiritual function, when we interact with it consciously, its ability to assist us deepens. This was not a poetic metaphor for him. It was energetic fact. He told one seeker, speak to your plants, not as a superstition, but as a recognition of what they truly are. Allies, beings with a kind of intelligence that moves below language, and yet speaks volumes to the soul. What happens when you greet your basil not just with water, but with gratitude? When you place lavender near your pillow with the intent to dream more clearly? When you rest your hand on a peace lily during a moment of tension? Not as a crutch, but as a co-regulator of inner harmony. The world begins to shift, not outside first, but inside. And through that shift, a more profound change emerges you remember. Not just who you are, but how connected everything has always been. As we prepare to meet the first of these 7 spiritual teachers, Cayce would have us pause, breathe, feel. The journey ahead is not only about information, but transformation. Each plant is a chapter, a doorway, a note in the greater song of your becoming. Let us begin with Sage the Smoke, the light, the purifier of stagnant energies. Step into a room you've never been in before. The furniture is arranged just so, the lighting soft, the scent of something faintly bitter and earthy still lingering in the air. You pause. Something feels different. Not visible, not obvious, but the space feels clear, lighter somehow, as if whatever burden had once hung there has evaporated. This is the work of sage, not just a herb burned in ritual, not just a bundle waved through smoke. But, according to Edgar Cayce, a spiritual purifier, one whose vibration doesn't just cleanse air, but rewrites the subtle imprints left by fear, anger, illness, or loss. Cayce's reading 1158-31 speaks of sage with an intimacy rare even among herbalists. To him, this plant held the vibration of purification. It wasn't just a botanical ally, it was a living force capable of dissolving residues most of us don't even know we carry. We've all felt it entering a room where something unspoken hangs in the air like fog. The sharp tension after an argument. The dense quiet that follows bad news. Cayce explained that strong emotional experiences leave behind a kind of psychic debris, vibrational traces that cling to walls, furniture, even the very air. And that's where sage comes in. Burned with conscious intention, its smoke acts as an energetic cleanser. Its essential oils, when released into the atmosphere, raise the vibrational frequency of a space, making it inhospitable to lower or stagnant energies. Like turning on a brighter light that naturally drives shadows to the corners. But Cayce offered a critical addition, one often lost in modern-day smudging practices: intention. It's not enough, he said, to light the bundle and walk the perimeter. The smoke alone isn't the power. It's your consciousness that activates the field. Sage, when combined with a focused mind and an open heart, becomes a tuning device elevating the room not just chemically, but spiritually. Think of it as a collaboration. The plant provides the vibration, you direct the frequency. This mirrors discoveries in quantum physics, where observation itself alters the outcome. Cayce intuitively grasped this, suggesting that the observer you play a crucial role in determining whether the smoke becomes sacred or merely symbolic. So, next time you burn sage, pause. Call your awareness fully into the act. Ask the smoke to carry away what no longer serves. Ask the plant to partner with you. In Cayce's universe, that request is not wishful thinking, it is energetic protocol, a contract between spirits. Even modern science, long skeptical of spiritual claims, has had to nod in sage's direction. Research has confirmed its antimicrobial properties, its ability to reduce airborne bacteria, and its influence on mood regulation. But to Cayce, those were only side effects. The real work happened in the unseen. He taught that sage could reset a home after illness, clear a bedroom where grief had settled, purify the aura of a person who had absorbed too many chaotic frequencies throughout the day. One reading advised placing sage in corners where arguments had occurred not as a ritual of superstition, but as an act of energetic hygiene. Let's sit with that for a moment. Energetic hygiene. We cleanse our bodies daily. We scrub countertops and dishes. We detox our diets. But what of the spiritual residue that lingers in our homes? The echoes of sorrow. The quiet despair trapped in old photographs. The resentment that lives in the hallway where a fight once erupted. Sage, Cayce insisted, is the light in that darkness. Not to erase what's been, but to clear space for what might be. It creates a clean slate, not only in the room, but in the hearts of those who live there. It's an invitation to recalibrate, to breathe more freely, to remember that sacred space begins with sacred intention, but only if you choose to partner with the plant. This was central to Cayce's message. The plant is alive, it has purpose, it is willing to assist, but it must be met with recognition, with presence, burned mindlessly. Sage is just smoke. Burned with reverence, it becomes ceremony. He once advised a woman to use sage not only in her home, but before beginning spiritual study. Clear the room, he said, then clear the self. Because sometimes the space that needs purifying most isn't a room, it's the emotional static we carry inside. In our age of overstimulation of screens, endless notifications, Synthetic environment sage offers a pause, a return, a reconnection to a slower rhythm, an older memory, a time when fire and herb and spirit worked as one. Have you ever sat in stillness after burning sage and felt something shift? That subtle click inside the feeling that you are suddenly more available, more attuned, more home than you were moments before. That is not your imagination. That is the plant doing its work. And when sage completes its ritual, it leaves something behind, not just cleaner air, but a recalibrated field, a space where your soul can exhale. So before we move on, consider this. What lingering energies live uninvited in your home? What patterns might you release if the air itself supported your letting go? And what new truths might emerge in a space held clean by the quiet smoke of sage? Now, breathe in slowly. Let your mind drift to sun-warmed fields stretching across the hills of Provence. The air is thick with the soft, powdery scent of lavender. It settles into your senses like a lullaby, a gentle invitation to slow down, to turn inward, to listen not with ears but with something far more ancient. Lavender, Edgar Cayce taught, is not just a calming herb, it is a spiritual bridge, a plant whose essence resonates with the pineal gland, that tiny, pine cone-shaped structure nestled in the center of the brain, a gland long linked to intuition, inner sight, and what mystics across cultures have called the third eye. Cayce's readings described lavender as a harmonizer of brain and soul, a plant capable of quieting the static of the analytical mind while simultaneously stimulating subtle perception. In this way, it doesn't merely relax, it opens. It widens the doorway between the seen and the unseen, between the world you walk in and the world that stirs beneath your skin. For those who struggle with meditation, or who long to feel something deeper during their spiritual practice, Cayce had simple advice. Place fresh lavender near where you sit. Let its scent enter your breath. Apply its oil gently to your temples, like an anointing. This was not aesthetic suggestion. It was spiritual strategy. Lavender, he explained, carries a vibration that aligns the two hemispheres of the brain, the logical left and the intuitive right, the doing and the being. When unified, they allow the soul's voice to rise above the mental noise and be heard. Modern studies have since confirmed what Cayce already knew, that lavender increases alpha brain waves, the very frequency associated with calm alertness, meditative absorption, and open awareness. But to Cayce, brainwaves were not the final measure. He looked deeper, to what he called the soul body, the energetic template that links your physical form to higher dimensions of consciousness. Lavender, he said, acts on that level. Its aroma doesn't simply trigger relaxation in the body, it calls forward the part of you that remembers stillness, the part that sees beyond logic, the part that dreams, even while awake. And who among us doesn't need that? In a world that prizes productivity and speed, lavender asks you to pause, to soften, to release the clenched jaw of your mind. It does not demand attention. It offers invitation, quiet, persistent, loving, the kind of energy that doesn't push but allows. Have you ever noticed how certain scents can unlock entire memories? One breath and you're 8 years old again, running barefoot through grass. Another, and you're held in the embrace of someone long gone. That's not imagination. That's the subtle realm doing its work. Lavender operates in that realm. Not to anchor you to the past, but to remind you of the deeper rhythm running beneath your surface thoughts. The rhythm of your soul. A rhythm often drowned out by the white noise of modern life. And so, Cayce encouraged placing lavender where it matters most, near your bed, near your meditation space, near the entrance to your home. Each location, he explained, serves as a portal between levels of consciousness. The threshold where the mundane meets the sacred. He once described seeing monks in ancient Europe tending to lavender as both medicine and sacrament. To them, the plant wasn't separate from their spiritual work, it was part of it. Its presence created an atmosphere of sanctity. It cleared inner space as much as outer space. Lavender, in this way, becomes a partner in perception. It teaches without words. Its frequency carries the medicine of integration, the kind that doesn't sever thought from intuition, but allows them to flow as one stream. A clarity that doesn't shout, but arises in the stillness, like moonlight on still water. And that stillness, Cayce believed, was necessary not only for insight, but for healing. He viewed many illnesses as distortions in the vibrational field imbalances between body and soul. Lavender, by creating harmony within the subtle layers of consciousness, helped restore the blueprint from which the physical form is shaped. It wasn't just about calm, it was about alignment. So what might happen if you brought lavender into your sacred routines? What if, before opening your journal or lighting your candle, you paused to inhale its fragrance? What if your sleep space became a temple of restoration, not just for muscles and breath, but for memory, vision, and soul? What might you see more clearly if your inner sight were not clouded by stress? Lavender won't give you answers, but it will create the space where answers can arise. It won't speak in sentences, but it will sing in frequencies. And in that song, you may just remember what it feels like to live in gentle awareness, to rest in your own being, to trust the wisdom rising from within. Lavender does not rush, it waits, and in its waiting, it reminds you, you are already whole, you are already enough. You only need to remember how to listen. Now picture a different landscape. The sun burns high above white stone, shadows stretch long and slow across ancient temple walls. The air is dry, electric with silence. And in the stillness, there stands a humble yet luminous presence, aloe vera, its thick, water-laden leaves glowing with quiet resilience. Edgar Cayce called it the plant of immortality. To the untrained eye, aloe is unassuming, a common succulent, a balm for burns, a fixture in windowsills and gardens across the world. But through Cayce's inner sight, it revealed its deeper nature, a guardian, a healer, not only of the skin, but of the subtle body. A plant that absorbs what would otherwise deplete the life force of those nearby. In one reading, Cayce described aloe's gift in unmistakable terms. The aloe absorbs that which would be detrimental to human life force. Not just physical toxins, but energetic ones, emotional static, disruptive frequencies, the invisible noise that builds up in the corners of your spirit, like dust on glass. He spoke of aloe vera's vibrational signature, its unique resonance that allows it to act as a sponge for harmful energies. Positioned in the right place, he said, aloe doesn't merely sit passively, it draws, it filters, it transmutes what you cannot see into something harmless, even nourishing. And this makes sense when you feel its presence. There's a density to aloe, an internal reservoir of life-giving moisture. It radiates steadiness, a kind of silent strength. Cayce suggested this water, held deep within the plant's body, acted like a storehouse of vital energy, a buffer between the harsh outer world and the tender human soul. In ancient Egypt, where Cayce claimed to have lived as the priest Rata, aloe vera was not merely medicinal. It was spiritual technology. Temples carved its likeness into stone, not as decoration, but as energetic encoding. Even its symbol, Cayce taught, carried protective frequency. Placed at temple thresholds, Aloe guarded the transitions between sacred and profane, between outer clamor and inner sanctum, between what drains and what replenishes. It held the line. It offered purification not only through its gel, but through its field. Think about the devices surrounding you now. Screens, phones, Wi-Fi routers, televisions, all emitting waves unseen, constant, and subtly invasive. Cayce warned of electromagnetic disruption long before science began acknowledging its effects. He saw aloe vera as a natural antidote, a biological shield. Near computers or electronics, aloe doesn't merely beautify, it defends. But there's more. He spoke of aloe as a healer, not just of place, but of people, especially those who give and give until they are empty. One reading described aloe's ability to replenish depleted energy fields, to restore harmony to those who have lost part of their light through service. Does that sound like someone you know? Someone who absorbs the pain of others, who walks into a room and feels overwhelmed without knowing why? Who ends their day more exhausted than their actions can explain? To those sensitive souls, Cayce would say, let aloe stand near. Let it do what it has always done. Let it hold what you cannot carry. This is not magical thinking. It's energetic ecology. And in Cayce's worldview, that ecology was as real as gravity. Even now, studies validate aloe's power to remove pollutants like formaldehyde from the air. But Cayce would gently remind us that is just the physical layer, the outer expression, the visible echo of an invisible truth. He urged seekers to keep aloe near beds, near thresholds, near televisions, anywhere the soul's field might thin or be breached. Aloe, he said, acts like a lighthouse in the fog. Its very form, a rosette of outstretched blades, channels energy inward, holds it, and radiates calm strength outward. But as always with Cayce, awareness is key. He insisted that the plant responds more strongly when recognized, acknowledged, not worshipped, but partnered with. A simple touch, a moment of gratitude, a whispered thanks before bedtime, these small acts of reverence, he said, deepen the relationship. And it is a relationship. Cayce saw plants not as passive tools, but as beings each with its own intelligence, its own mission. Aloe's mission is protection, absorption, transmutation, not flashy, not fragrant, but profound in its constancy. So what would it look like to invite aloe into your life, not just as a kitchen remedy, but as a spiritual ally? Could you place it where tension gathers most, near your phone charger, or your front door, or the chair where you tend to scroll endlessly through worry and comparison? Could you sit beside it during times of grief and let it hold the emotions that words cannot? Could you let it teach you what it means to store life not reactively, but intentionally? Aloe doesn't ask much. It requires little water. It thrives on neglect. But what it offers in return is far greater than its humble appearance suggests. It offers containment, clearing, care, and in a world that constantly drains our attention, energy, and focus, this small, silent sentinel reminds us, not all power is loud, not all healing comes with ceremony. Sometimes, protection is simply presence, and aloe vera patient, grounded, quietly radiant is presence made green and real. Step into the courtyard of an old Indian home. The sun hovers gently above, warming terracotta rooftops. And there, in a humble clay pot, growing with wild generosity, is a plant the locals bow to with folded hands and whispered mantras, tulsi, known in the West as holy basil. To most, it's just a fragrant herb. But to Edgar Cayce, tulsi was far more than a culinary staple. He called it the plant of spiritual protection, a living bridge between earth and divinity. In his trance state readings, he spoke of it as an energetic circuit, one that not only radiates love outward, but channels higher awareness downward, into the marrow of everyday life. It is, in essence, a reconciliation, a union of the sacred and the mundane. And that, Cayce said, is the deepest paradox of spiritual growth, to live with your feet on the ground and your soul in the stars. In reading 3823-1, Cayce revealed Basil's vibration as one that grounds spirit and lifts matter. Its roots burrow deep into the soil, anchoring. Its leaves reach upward, inviting the unseen. And within that dynamic motion up and down, above and below, a harmony emerges. The kind that doesn't divide the spiritual from the material, but fuses them into something holy and whole. In the Ayurvedic tradition, Tulsi is revered as the embodiment of the divine feminine, not in softness alone, but in power, clarity, nurture, and ferocity when needed. Cayce's readings echoed this understanding. He described the plant as carrying the signature of abundance and generosity, not just in the physical sense, but in its energetic blueprint. Watch how it grows fast, wild, and with a scent that permeates every corner of its space. Cayce saw this rapid expansion as symbolic of universal life force, the same force that flows through you when you are aligned with your highest purpose. And yet, its energy is not chaotic. It's coherent. It organizes. It centers. Cayce noted that Basil's frequency aligns most directly with the heart chakra, the seat of compassion, empathy, and divine connection in human form. But at the same time, he explained, it grounds that loving frequency through its roots, stabilizing what might otherwise float away into sentimentality or disembodied thought. This dual action of ascending and descending creates what Cayce called a circuit of divine love, a living current, a pulse of holiness made tangible through leaf and stem. What does that mean for you? In your home? In your life? It means that placing basil near your kitchen, for example, is not just herbal wisdom, it's spiritual practice. The space where food is prepared becomes, through Tulsi's presence, an altar. Each meal infused with vitality, not just of body, but of soul. Nourishment becomes communion, placed near doorways. Basil acts as a kind of vibrational doorkeeper, inviting coherence in, holding chaos at bay. Cayce suggested this placement specifically to help maintain spiritual awareness as one transitions between inner sanctuary and outer world, between solitude and interaction, between your true self and the roles you must sometimes wear. In this way, Tulsi becomes a companion in the integration of self, a guide for those seeking to embody their spirituality in the thick of life. Not just on cushions or in temples, Cayce was aware of how easy it is to split the world into sacred and secular. He saw seekers struggle with the illusion that spiritual growth required escape from noise, from bills, from imperfection. But Tulsi, he taught, shows another way. A way of bringing spirit into matter, of sanctifying the ordinary. Its presence invites you to see your home not just as shelter, but as sanctuary. Your actions not just as tasks, but as expressions of devotion. Even your struggles become soil-rich with lessons, fertile for flowering. Tulsi teaches there is no separation. All life is sacred. All places are holy. If you have the eyes to see, and like all the plants Cayce revered, Tulsi responds to conscious relationship. It thrives when sung to, when spoken with, when treated not as utility, but as ally. He advised those on the spiritual path to cultivate Tulsi, not only for its effects on the immune system or its aromatic qualities, but for its energetic companionship. for its ability to keep the heart open while the feet remain grounded, for its capacity to teach us how to love in practical ways through nourishment, through presence, through the integration of inner vision with outer action. So ask yourself, where in your life are you divided between what you know and what you do, between the voice that longs for stillness and the hands that must keep moving, between the clarity of morning meditation and the chaos of the afternoon? Tulsi does not erase that tension. It holds it, balances it, infuses it with grace, and as you breathe in its scent, clove sweet, peppery, vibrant, you may notice a shift, a softening, a kind of sacred gravity that pulls you into the present, into the body, into love expressed as motion. Let it grow near you. Let it teach you that the spiritual is not elsewhere. It is here, in the soil, in the stirring spoon, in the doorway, in the breath. Tulsi reminds us the divine is not far. The divine is within and all around. Now walk slowly into a shaded room. The light is dim, but not dark. Quiet, but not silent. In the corner, partially hidden behind the curve of a chair or near a soft curtained window, something green catches your eye. It doesn't call attention to itself, but it's there still, elegant, gently luminous. A peace lily. Edgar Cayce called it a vibrational ally for relationship healing, not just between people, but within the tangled landscapes of the self. Where sage clears and basil energizes, the peace lily holds, it receives, it transmutes. To Cayce, this plant embodied the principle of balance, the sacred rhythm of giving and receiving, speaking and listening, holding and letting go. In its long, sweeping leaves and the poised white bloom that seems to float rather than grow, he saw the vibration of spiritual maturity, a grace that arises only through experience, through shadow, through the choice to remain present in the discomfort of unresolved emotion. He spoke of homes burdened not by visible conflict, but by unspoken tension, rooms where words had been swallowed, where pain had passed in silence. He described how these energies, left to linger, become stagnant pools in the energetic architecture of a space, invisible but deeply felt. You walk in and feel heavy, or drained, or inexplicably restless. The peace lily, Cayce explained, acts as an emotional alchemist, like the element of water fluid. Deep, responsive, it absorbs the density of emotional residue and begins the quiet work of transformation, not through explosion or confrontation, but through presence, through resonance, through the subtle gift of holding still. In readings that predated the scientific studies we now take for granted, Cayce spoke of the peace lily's ability to purify more than air. Yes, modern research has confirmed its power to remove chemical toxins like benzene and formaldehyde. But Cayce said its real power lies in its influence on energetic and emotional fields. In one poignant reading, he advised a family plagued by years of conflict to place a peace lily in the center of their living space, not merely as decoration, but as a stabilizer, a quiet facilitator of conversations long avoided, a buffer between reactive energies, a mirror that does not judge, but simply reflects clarity back to those who pass by. And how does it do this? By embodying what we often forget in our striving and our speaking piece is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of coherence. Look closely at the plant. Its white bloom is not a flower, but a modified leaf, a spathe, arching over the spadix. The true bloom within, it shields without hiding. It reveals without force. The peace lily teaches us how to hold space not by fixing or suppressing, but by witnessing with grace. Cayce often referred to the influence of Eastern philosophies, even when he didn't name them directly. And in the framework of the 5 elements, the peace lily aligns with water, the element of emotion, intuition, and depth. It thrives in low light, symbolizing the wisdom found in the places we most often avoid. Places of grief, of memory, of silence. In a world obsessed with brightness and clarity, peace lilies bloom in the shadows, and in doing so, remind us that not all truth is found in the light. Have you ever avoided a room in your own home, not for its contents, but for its feeling? Have you felt that prickling discomfort, that unexplainable edge of unease where love once lived, but something left unspoken now lingers? Cayce believed that space holds story, and that some stories must be gently rewritten not with words, but with frequency, with beings who understand how to breathe in pain and exhale potential. The peace lily, placed with intention, becomes a listener for what has gone unheard, a resting place for invisible weight, a vessel into which hurt can dissolve, little by little, until what remains is clarity, not the forced brightness of denial, but the calm glow of transformation. And like all of Cayce's sacred 7, its power is magnified through recognition. He advised connecting with the peace lily during times of reflection, sitting near it when journaling, praying, or contemplating difficult relationships. Not because the plant replaces your work, but because it supports it, stabilizes it, helps catch and ground the tremors of emotional movement before they become earthquakes. So let it live in your shared spaces, your living room, your kitchen table, your entryway. Let it become a soft guardian of dialogue, of presence, of forgiveness that blooms slowly, quietly, over time. And remember, healing does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits in silence beside you, leaf and breath aligned, waiting for the moment you are ready to open not your mouth, but your heart. The peace lily waits with you, and within that waiting, a deeper harmony begins. Now imagine a hillside bathed in golden sunlight. Dry stone walls crisscross the earth like ancient veins. The wind moves softly through low shrubs, carrying the sharp, invigorating scent of something unmistakable: rosemary. To many, it's a kitchen herb sprinkled on roasted potatoes, infused in oils. But to Edgar Cayce, rosemary held something deeper. Not flavor, not fragrance, but remembrance. The herb of remembrance, he called it. Not for memory in the usual sense, not for names or dates or where you put your keys, but for the memory beneath memory. The one your soul carries, the one that speaks of purpose, identity, and the truth of who you were before the world told you what to be. Cayce's readings described rosemary as a spiritual catalyst, a plant that awakens what has long slept beneath the noise of daily life. Its scent, he said, stirs something ancient within us, something not learned but recalled, soul memory. The quiet knowledge that you are not your worries, not your failures, not your circumstances. You are a being of vast experience, walking the arc of countless lifetimes. And rosemary, with its clear, pine-like fragrance, is the breeze that parts the veil. Cayce referenced the ancient Greeks, who wore rosemary in wreaths around their heads during examinations, not merely to stimulate cognitive recall, but to attune the mind to higher knowing. Rosemary was never just a stimulant. It was a tuning fork for the superconscious. Its oils, he explained, open a channel, an energetic bridge between the conscious mind and the deeper, soul-level awareness that normally lies dormant. Through this channel, flashes of insight may rise, long-buried intuitions, forgotten dreams, a sense of I've known this before, even in brand new experiences. But this isn't memory of events. It's memory of essence, of who you are when you strip away performance, of the why behind your choices, of the original blueprint beneath all the edits made by fear and habit. And it's no accident that rosemary thrives in challenging terrain, on dry hillsides, in rocky soil, under blazing sun. It's a survivor. Its energy is sharp, resilient, penetrating. It pushes through, and in doing so, it teaches us how to do the same. When you breathe it in, there's no mistaking its signature. It's not soft like lavender. It doesn't caress. It pierces. It clears the fog. Cayce described it as cutting through the veils that obscure the soul. Its vibration aligns with the higher mind, the seat of spiritual clarity and destiny awareness. He recommended placing rosemary in workspaces, study areas, even in meditation rooms wherever clarity and focus were needed, not just mentally, but spiritually. One reading even suggested applying rosemary oil before spiritual study or prayer to activate receptivity to higher realms. Modern research confirms rosemary's benefits for short-term memory, alertness, and cognitive function. But Cayce urged us to look beyond function. He invited us to see rosemary as a spiritual trigger, a plant whose aroma doesn't just awaken neurons, but reminds the soul of its purpose. Think of the times you felt unexpectedly clear, when the confusion lifted, when your path seemed illuminated without external cause. Cayce would say rosemary was near, either physically or through resonance. Through a vibrational echo, your soul recognized. He saw rosemary as particularly helpful for those who felt adrift, uncertain of their next step, caught in cycles of distraction or self-doubt. For such people, he advised keeping the plant close, not only for mental clarity, but for energetic orientation. A compass made of scent. Its essence, he taught, doesn't give answers. It reminds you that you already carry them. So what would it mean to bring rosemary into your space, not as garnish, but as guide, to keep a sprig near your bed, that your dreams may open doors once closed, to sit with its scent before journaling, inviting the soul to speak before the mind intrudes, to plant it near your doorway, so that every time you leave home, you remember who you are. Cayce often warned of spiritual amnesia, a forgetting that comes not from sin or shame, but from immersion in the material world. The distractions, the noise, the endless to-do lists that drown out your deeper knowing. Rosemary, he said, breaks that trance. Its clarity is not abrasive, but crisp. It's the sudden cold of mountain air that makes you gasp and feel alive. It's the breeze through ancient trees, whispering truths you didn't know you missed. And like all of Cayce's sacred plants, rosemary responds to intention. Touch it with reverence. Smell it not with your nose alone, but with your spirit. Listen, and you may find that what you thought you'd lost was only waiting to be remembered. Because sometimes, the path forward is not about discovering something new. It's about recalling what was always within you. And rosemary, the ancient herb of clarity, holds the key. Picture the soft hush of evening. A lamp glows warm in the corner. The buzz of the world begins to quiet, and you step over a threshold, leaving behind the noise, the obligations, the roles you play. You enter your sanctuary, and standing silently at the edge of this passage, like a watchful guardian, is a snake plant. Its upright leaves reach toward the ceiling like emerald blades, unmoving, steady, and utterly present. To Edgar Cayce, this plant was not ornamental. It was protective technology, spiritual infrastructure disguised in green. He called it a guardian of sacred space, a being capable of transmuting dense, disruptive energies into life force, a kind of living firewall for the soul, unlike most plants, which rest at night. The snake plant activates. It continues to release oxygen long after the sun has set. Cayce linked this unusual trait to its unique role in the dream time, a period he believed was crucial for energetic restoration and soul communication. During sleep, Cayce explained, we are vulnerable not in fear, but in openness. The veils thin, the conscious mind softens, and in that space, subtle energies, both nourishing and depleting, can interact with us. Snake plant, he said, stands guard. It forms a kind of energetic perimeter around the sleeping body, filtering frequencies, much like its long, sword-like leaves filter toxins from the air. And there's science behind this. NASA's Clean Air study confirmed that snake plants remove pollutants like xylene, benzene, and formaldehyde from enclosed spaces. But to Cayce, this was merely the visible echo of a more powerful vibrational cleansing one that operated on emotional and psychic levels. He advised those who worked in healing professions, doctors, therapists, spiritual counselors, to keep snake plants near entryways or resting spaces. Why? Because such people are often empaths, absorbing the emotional residue of others without realizing it. Snake plant, he taught, helps maintain energetic sovereignty. It doesn't block connection. It strengthens boundaries. Think of its structure: tall, pointed, unyielding. It doesn't sprawl. It doesn't soften. It stands. That form is not arbitrary, it's symbolic. The leaves create vertical channels anchored, intentional, like spires that draw energy up and out. Cayce believed this geometry was no accident. He described it as spiritual architecture, a form designed to move energy vertically, transforming it as it rose. What does this mean for you? It means that in moments of overwhelm, when the world's noise presses in from all directions, a snake plant in your space can serve as a spiritual bouncer. It clears static. It affirms your energetic field. It reminds you without words that your essence is yours. He also advised placing snake plants near thresholds, doorways, windows, and points of transition. These are the liminal spaces where energies shift, where the outer world meets the inner, where we are most likely to absorb patterns not meant for us. Snake plant at the door is not just decor, it's a sentinel, a vibrational gatekeeper. And like all the 7 sacred plants, its influence is amplified by intention. Before sleep, touch its leaves and ask for protection in the night. After a difficult conversation, stand near it and breathe deeply. Imagine it absorbing what no longer serves. When you feel overstimulated, sit beside it in stillness. Let it remind your nervous system how to root, how to center, how to remember your own energetic shape. Cayce once advised a physician whose work was depleting him to place a snake plant between his office and his home. It will assist in the shift, he said, so that which belongs to others may not follow you in. That was Cayce's gentle way of saying some burdens were never yours to carry. The plant doesn't judge. It doesn't shield in fear. It filters in love. It teaches by example, modeling the art of strong, healthy boundaries. It does not apologize for taking up space. It does not contort itself to please. It simply stands. And in its standing, it offers you the chance to do the same. So what does the architecture of your soul's home look like? Are there spaces where boundaries blur, where you lose yourself in the needs of others, where the weight of collective emotion has begun to feel like your own? The snake plant does not offer dramatic healing. It offers something more sustainable: constancy, a slow, steady clearing, a return to coherence. It is the whisper at the door that says, "This is sacred ground. Come in clean." And when placed with care, it helps maintain that clarity, not just for you, but for all who pass through. It ensures that your home becomes what it was always meant to be: a sanctuary, a temple, a space where your vibration can return to its natural frequency, untouched, unclouded, whole. Let the snake plant stand where you shift. Let it hold the line so you don't have to. Let it teach you that protection is not resistance. It is resonance. Now step back, zoom out, picture all 7 of these plants: sage, lavender, aloe vera, basil, peace lily, rosemary, snake plant gathered in one space, not haphazardly placed, but arranged with reverence, like the points of a sacred pattern, a design not just for beauty, but for balance. Edgar Cayce described this arrangement as a living mandala of consciousness. Each plant holds a frequency, a facet of soul harmony, and together, they do not merely coexist, they interweave. They form a vibrational tapestry that echoes the structure of the human energy body itself, a spiritual ecosystem, a choir of green allies, each voice resonating with a different part of you. This is not metaphor, not poetic stretch. Cayce's reading spoke of the soul as a multidimensional instrument, with layers and fields that vibrate at different frequencies. Emotions, thoughts, spiritual longings all have their resonance. And when these tones drift out of tune, the result is not only imbalance, it is suffering. The plants, he said, correct that. Individually, they offer precise tuning: sage for clearing, lavender for insight, aloe for protection, basil for integration, peace lily for relational healing, rosemary for remembrance, snake plant for energetic sovereignty. But together, they form something greater, a harmonic field. Cayce emphasized that the human being is not a closed system. We are porous, affected by environments, by frequencies, by intention. We absorb and emit constantly. The vibrational presence of these 7 plants, especially when consciously arranged, creates a kind of resonant chamber for the soul. It's not about having a jungle in your living room. It's about placement with purpose. Place sage near thresholds, where it can purify what enters and exits. Let lavender rest near your pillow or your altar, guiding the subtle sense. Keep aloe near electronics, where it can buffer and cleanse. Let basil thrive in your kitchen, infusing the material with spiritual charge. Position a peace lily in communal spaces, healing what goes unspoken. Invite rosemary into your studio or workspace, awakening the thread of memory. And place snake plants near the doors of inner and outer transitions, holding the boundary with grace. Together, they do what no single element could achieve alone. They balance, not just the room, but you. Cayce said this arrangement mirrors what he called the soul pattern, the energetic template from which your physical and emotional experience unfolds. The plants are not randomly effective. They correspond to specific energy centers, much like the chakra system of Eastern thought. Sage aligns with the base, the root of security and cleansing. Lavender connects with the brow, the seat of vision and intuition. Aloe guards the solar plexus, the will and selfhood. Basil nurtures the heart, love made material. Peace lily steadies the throat, where truth and silence meet. Rosemary touches the crown, remembrance of divine origin. Snake plant surrounds the aura, forming the container through which energy flows. And what is a mandala? Truly, it is a mirror of the self, not as fragmented ego, but as integrated wholeness, a spiritual compass, a map back home. Cayce taught that creating a living mandala of plants isn't superstition. It's intention made visible. It is a way of saying, I am ready to live in resonance. I am willing to let my space reflect my soul. And when your outer environment aligns with your inner truth, something shifts. You begin to heal without force, to grow without panic, to remember without trying. The plants do not fix you. They remind you. He once told a seeker, "The presence of these plants creates the possibility of harmony, but the direction of their influence depends on your awareness." In other words, you are the co-creator. Their power awakens through your attention, your reverence, your choice to listen, to engage. Think of it this way: the plants hum, their frequencies pulse, but your consciousness is the conductor. You decide whether the symphony plays in silence or song. And what song might it be? One of rebalancing, of realignment, of return. A return to feeling safe in your space. A return to clarity after confusion. A return to belonging in your own body. A return to the ancient wisdom that says you are never alone. The living mandala is not just for mystics or monks. It is for you. Here. Now. In a rented apartment or a tiny kitchen, on a windowsill or in a sunroom, it is not the grandeur that matters. It is the intention. Each plant, placed with care, becomes a sacred syllable in the mantra of your life, a soft chant of restoration. And as they vibrate together, something invisible but undeniable happens. Your space becomes a sanctuary. Your sanctuary becomes a temple. Your temple becomes you harmonized. Now imagine standing quietly in your home. The light is low. The noise of the outside world fades. Around you, perhaps without even realizing it, you've created something more than a living space. A vibration hums softly beneath the walls, through the air, into your breath. It is not coming from you alone. It comes from those standing silently beside you: sage, lavender, aloe, basil, peace lily, rosemary, and snake plant. They do not speak in words. They do not move unless moved by wind or hand, and yet they are alive, conscious, listening. Edgar Cayce taught that plants are not ornaments, but allies, that each carries not only a physical function, but a spiritual presence, a purpose, a soul. His readings challenged the prevailing view of the natural world as unconscious matter. He asked us to return to an ancient way of knowing, one not rooted in conquest or consumption, but in relationship. To speak to your plants, he said, is not superstition. It is acknowledgement. To touch them with gratitude is not sentimentality. It is reverence. To invite them into your healing journey is not desperation. It is wisdom. Because every great tradition, indigenous, mystical, alchemical, has understood this truth. Consciousness is not confined to the human mind. It pulses through leaf and stone, feather and flame, root and river. And the plants, they are among our closest kin, not only in biology, but in spirit. Cayce's vision was not about returning to nature in a vague, aesthetic way. It was about reclaiming sacred partnership, seeing plants as teachers, as healers, as extensions of divine intelligence that operates outside the limits of language. And what shifts when we do? First, our homes change. They soften, breathe, become sanctuaries, not just shelters. The energies trapped in walls and corners begin to move again. Spaces once filled with tension begin to release. Rooms once stale with memory begin to hum with potential. Then we begin to change. We feel more rooted, less reactive, more open to the quiet voice within. The one that's always known what we need, what we came here for, the one muffled for too long beneath layers of noise. Cayce said that even a single moment of conscious exchange, a touch, a word, a pause of attention can strengthen the bond between human and plant. that plants respond to love, that their energy magnifies when we recognize them not as things, but as beings. And this isn't fantasy. Science has begun to catch up. Studies now explore plant communication, memory, and sensory responsiveness. Time-lapse photography reveals their near-sentient movement toward light, sound, touch. What Cayce intuited decades ago is no longer confined to the mystical, it is measurable. But even if it weren't, you would still know. You've felt it, haven't you? The calm that arrives when you water your fern after a hard day. The inexplicable joy of seeing a bloom unfold overnight. The way your breath deepens in a room filled with green. These are not coincidences. They are conversations. Cayce urged us to treat our interactions with plants as sacred. Ask permission before pruning. Say thank you after harvesting. Place them with intention. Speak to them not to command, but to connect. This is the language of conscious companionship. The old language. The one the earth has always spoken. And in relearning it, you don't just become a better gardener, you become more whole. Because the truth Cayce illuminated again and again was this: healing is not an individual journey. It is a co-creation between soul and source, between human and plant, between seen and unseen. And the plants, especially these 7, stand ready. They do not rush. They do not demand. They wait. And when invited, they serve. Not as tools, not as servants, but as keepers of harmony, quietly guiding us home to the rhythm we were born to remember. So as you walk your home today, look again at the green lives around you. Ask, what are they offering that I haven't yet heard? Ask, what might I remember if I sat with them, listened, breathed. And know this: you are not alone on this path. You are surrounded by teachers, rooted in silence, fluent in vibration. Their lessons do not come in lectures,